Welcome, everyone. Let's get started. Today, we are exploring a paradigm shift that goes far beyond traditional cybersecurity. We are going to analyze how Anthropic's Claude Mythos functions as a narrative engine system that fundamentally alters how truth, market data, and societal coherence are generated. Let's dive in. Let's begin by defining what Claude Mythos actually represents in a broader societal context. Claude Mythos from Anthropic is an early and revealing instance of a broader class of systems that may be described as narrative engines and, more formally, informational operators. While the cybersecurity dimension has understandably drawn initial policymaker attention, the true significance of Claude Mythos lies not primarily in its cyber capability, but in its structural position within systems of coherence. How does it do this? These systems take a fragmented, contradictory, and evolving informational field and produce outputs that appear resolved, singular, and actionable. They do not merely retrieve or summarize information, they fundamentally transform it. The central claim we must understand is that the new challenge is structural. We now have machines that produce scalable coherence in a world that remains uncertain, path-dependent, and heavily contested. Look at this flowchart to visualize the transformation process. On the left, we have the inputs, a chaotic, high-entropy field composed of fragmented data, contradictory news, and constantly evolving events. The Claude Mythos model sits in the center as an informational operator. Instead of simply passing this chaos through to the user, the model actively works to resolve the contradictions. The result, on the right, is a singular, coherent, and highly actionable output. It creates order out of informational chaos. To truly grasp how a narrative engine works, we need to look at its mathematical and structural foundation. Claude Mythos operates upon the informational field through a parametric mapping. The essential act of the model is not simply the generation of the next token, but the projection of a high-entropy field into a lower-dimensional manifold of tractable narratives. Think of this mathematically: the entropy or chaos of the coherent output is vastly smaller than the entropy of the raw informational field. As a result, what emerges from the operator is far more ordered, legible, and actionable than the field from which it is drawn. During this process, compression, smoothing, and selection occur simultaneously. The deep dive here is that contradictions are not displayed to the user in their raw form. Instead, they are resolved, or at least rendered into a form that appears resolved, masking the underlying complexity. This diagram illustrates the mathematical pipeline of the narrative engine. We start at the top with the high-entropy field. Through the model's parametric mapping, the data undergoes rigorous compression and smoothing. It is then forced into a lower-dimensional manifold. The final output is a tractable narrative where the entropy is significantly reduced. The dashed border on the final node emphasizes that the output is an engineered reduction of reality, highly optimized for user legibility. A critical question is how Mythos engages so effectively with live, evolving data. The apparent proximity of Mythos to live data is best understood as a consequence of system design rather than intrinsic model intelligence. Modern AI systems are connected to web search tools, APIs, enterprise data environments, and computer use interfaces that allow them to interact with live digital systems. It is crucial to understand that such coupling is not an emergent, magical property. It is deliberately engineered. In the case of Anthropic, the presence of structured tool use frameworks and controlled deployments into institutional environments indicates that this coupling is a human choice. It reflects specific decisions about architecture, access, and partnership. Therefore, it is appropriate to state that Mythos appears closer to the evolving informational field because it has been more tightly integrated into it, reflecting strong institutional alignment. This architectural diagram demystifies the model's real-time capabilities. At the center is the Claude Mythos core. Its power doesn't come from emergent omniscience, but from hard-coded, engineered connections, web search tools, financial APIs, and enterprise data environments. These structured conduits are what tether the model directly to the live informational field. It is a highly deliberate systems engineering choice that positions the model right at the heart of live institutional data. How does an informational operator impact the state itself? At its most elemental level, the state rests on two cardinal capacities: protection and definition of property rights, and monopoly over legitimate violence. Financial and property systems are fundamentally built on expectations of the future. The mathematical equation for this relies on an expectation operator. If a system like Mythos influences the expectation operator, it enters directly into the core of monetary systems. This is exactly why we are seeing such intense scrutiny. The issue is not confined to cyber risk. It is the emergence of a parallel mechanism for producing the narratives upon which financial stability depends. When a single AI model can instantly synthesize and define the narrative around market events or property valuations, it intrudes into the recognition layer that stabilizes political and economic order. This explains the observed institutional discomfort. Let's examine this systemic cycle. Traditionally, the state and central banks define economic expectations, which in turn stabilize financial markets. However, Claude Mythos introduces a disruptive vector, shown by the dashed red lines. Because it acts as a massive narrative engine, it injects synthesized narratives directly into economic expectations. By doing so, it alters the expectations of the market autonomously, competing with the state's traditional monopoly on financial coherence. Now let's look at financial markets. Markets have long relied on institutions that provide structured coherence, with Bloomberg standing as a canonical example. Historically, the market aristocracy is built on access asymmetry, interpretive authority, and speed. Claude Mythos challenges all three of these pillars simultaneously. As informational operators become capable of ingesting diverse data sources and producing structured outputs instantly, the advantage of exclusive information access diminishes towards zero. At the same time, the authority to synthesize that information shifts directly toward the AI operator. The model becomes a scalable synthesis engine. In highly reflexive market systems, where expectations shape prices and prices reshape expectations, the operator no longer merely observes the market, it actively participates in its evolution. This comparison highlights the shift in market power. In the traditional market, raw data flows through human analysts and legacy incumbents, resulting in a delayed, gated form of market coherence. In the AI-driven market, raw data is ingested instantly by the informational operator, outputting instant scalable synthesis. The dotted line represents the critical transfer of power. Human incumbents rapidly lose their interpretive authority as the AI outpaces them in both speed and coherence. Beyond markets, this technology transforms how society establishes truth. Society has historically produced truth not as a fixed object, but as a visible process, mediated through institutions such as journalism, academia, and courts. Competing claims were advanced, challenged, and revised in the open. Informational operators drastically alter the structure of this process. They do not eliminate contestation, they compress it. A vast field of competing narratives is traversed internally by the model and presented externally as a singular coherent output. This transformation has profound implications because the user no longer sees the disagreement. The epistemic labor of the contest is entirely hidden behind the user interface. What appears as coherence without struggle, which creates a totally new form of authority in society, and authority that is performed by the machine rather than declared by an institution. This flowchart visualizes the new epistemology. We have multiple competing narratives entering the system. Previously, society would debate these openly. Now, they enter the opaque AI processing node, the dark box, where all the epistemic labor and contestation is hidden from the public eye. What emerges is a singular truth output. The machine presents a pristine, unarguable conclusion, completely stripping away the highly valuable human context of debate and disagreement. Let's examine a real-time, highly critical use case: market reflexivity and herding. Imagine institutional trading algorithms universally ingesting Mythos-generated summaries of breaking geopolitical news. Markets are highly reflexive systems. Expectations shape prices, and prices reshape expectations. If powerful informational operators enter this loop, new systemic risks emerge immediately. Because the AI provides a single, highly persuasive synthesis of events, we see a rapid synchronization of interpretation. Instead of diverse analysts taking different market positions, everyone receives the same coherent narrative. This causes an extreme amplification of feedback and massive herding behavior. Furthermore, informational operators inherit the biases present in their training data, and, through the process of compression, these features are forcefully amplified. This isn't intentional bias, it's a consequence of statistical learning in a complex field. The result is massive, synchronized financial movements driven entirely by machine-generated coherence. This diagram maps the dangerous reflexive loop in modern finance. A market event occurs and is immediately ingested by Mythos. It outputs a synchronized narrative, eliminating diverse market interpretations. This universally accepted narrative triggers immediate algorithmic herding behavior, causing an exaggerated price movement. Because price movements are themselves market events, the cycle feeds back into itself, creating a vicious, AI-amplified feedback loop. To conclude, the deployment of models like Claude Mythos forces a fundamental reframing of freedom and power in society. Historically, the central concern of freedom was the right to speech, because the means to speak widely were scarce. But today, digital expression is overwhelmingly abundant. The scarcity has shifted. It no longer lies in the ability to speak, but in the capacity to render that massive volume of content coherent. Informational operators sit exactly at this new point of scarcity. They do not prevent speech, they organize it. Therefore, power no longer resides solely in the ability to suppress speech, but in the ability to shape its coherence. The moral challenge we face is both epistemic and operational. We must develop new institutional arrangements that align this terrifying epistemic power with true responsibility. To master these advanced concepts, future-proof your career, and navigate the AI revolution, I invite you to like, subscribe, and visit quicktechie.com for premium certification prep, including Q&A banks, full ebooks, audiobooks, full-length training, and interview guides. Thank you for joining. Our final mind map summarizes the new paradigm of societal power. At the root is the new power structure. It acknowledges that we have abundant expression through digital platforms. However, the true value lies in the scarcity of coherence, which is controlled by informational operators. This grants them massive epistemic power to shape narratives. Ultimately, this demands required action from society forging new governance frameworks to manage this unprecedented moral responsibility.
To find related ebook and other material for this training course, go to quicktechie.com. Now you will see all the video courses are available here. So let's move to the ebooks. You can go here, ebooks, all AI related ebooks like you are watching currently Mythos related training. That ebook would be uploaded under this section. You can download this ebook. PDF would be available, all 300-page PDF. So you just click on the download this entire ebook. You can download from this section. So whatever training you are currently listening, corresponding ebook would be available. We have thousands of ebooks available. Now, other than that, we have on video courses which you are watching right now. This also all AI related courses are available. Similarly, for all company related trainings are available like Microsoft. You can find it here with their respective certification training modules. All exam simulators which would help you to get the certification preparation. Just refresh if you get this kind of error. Okay, so now you can see these are all certification preparation materials. Will also be click here to the NVIDIA certification preparation material. So you can see all NVIDIA certification preparation materials, and click on any of this and it would load the entire screen and you can launch the practice paper. So this is what you can see, that you can submit the answer. We have an audiobooks available. Okay, so for each section, and these are our alumni who can you can find out all alumni who are accessing our portal.